Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. All the guests in the main hall of this banquet are high-ranking individuals from Chu capital. Take Yuan Xiu, for instance. Even though he is merely a top-tier practitioner in the primal chaos realm, it is exceedingly rare for anyone in the land of origin to reach the pinnacle in culinary skills. The godly kings often invite him, and he always sets his sights pretty high, not necessarily accepting invitations even from first-class marquises of the imperial clan. But this time, it was a banquet to discuss Tao among two transcendent beings of the primal chaos realm. Yuan Xiu was well aware of his position, capable of acting superior to those in the primal chaos realm and marquises of the imperial clan, but he adopted a very humble attitude towards godly kings and transcendent beings of the primal chaos realm. Brother Luo He, the lord of Yuan Xiu mansion, sitting there with a smile, said, "I have spent a long time refining a dark mansion prison. Today, I will use some methods from the dark mansion to exchange a few moves with Brother Luo He." The guests in the main hall immediately realized that the highlight of the banquet had arrived. This level of confrontation was a rare sight for them. I've focused on physical body cultivation, so I'll use some physical techniques and compare notes with Brother Yuan Xiu. Luo Feng nodded in agreement. Lord of Yuan Xiu mansion nodded, his dark robe slightly tattered, like a damaged dark world, and suddenly, specks of dark flames began to spread over his robe. These dark flames spread toward Luo Feng in the main hall. This is the fire of the dark mansion, capable of burning the godly body and soul of a prisoner in the dark mansion. Luo Feng looked at those dark flames, and immediately his black robe also had black liquid spreading out. The black liquid, flowing like water, swiftly made contact with the dark flames. Sizzling flames burnt intensely. But the black liquid quickly enveloped them, each flame was wrapped by the black liquid. This black liquid was the yin-yang particle form of the Black Abyss transformation method, appearing to spread out not so abundantly, but actually already reached hundreds of millions of units engulfed it. Luo Feng clearly understood the advantage of his transformation method, overwhelming by sheer volume. Both of their robes are extraordinary. Can the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion's robe transform into the fire of the Dark Mansion? And the robe of Great Saint Luo He also extends black liquid. The black liquid has enveloped all the fire of the Dark Mansion. The fire of the Dark Mansion is undying, but the black liquid can also easily trap the fire from the Dark Mansion. Present were marquises of first and second class, guest officials of the primal chaos realm, direct disciples of godly kings, each with exceptional vision, and they all perceived the terrifying capabilities of both parties. The fire of the Dark Mansion was famous. Generally, even pinnacle practitioners of the primal chaos realm would not dare to confront it directly, as it would burn them into nothingness. Great Saint Luo He, who specialized in refining his physical body and transcended the primal chaos realm, was well known for being near indestructible among the levels of the primal chaos realm. "This black liquid, what secret technique is it?" exclaimed the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion. He sensed that the fire of the Dark Mansion could not damage this black liquid, and if Luo Feng wished, he could actually obliterate the flames with the overwhelming wrap of the black liquid. Luo Feng smiled and said, "It can be called the waters of the Black Abyss." Luo Feng knew well, if it were merely one unit of the Black Abyss transformation method, it would certainly be burnt and destroyed. But with hundreds of millions of units sweeping over, it naturally held an overwhelming advantage. The waters of the Black Abyss, understood the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion, impressive. The many guests watching were also secretly astonished. The fire of the Dark Mansion needn't be overstated for its fame. But these waters of the Black Abyss seemed to be just as formidable. Sigh. The fire of the Dark Mansion withdrew, retracting back into the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion's dark robe. With a thought, Luo Feng drew back hundreds of millions of units of black liquid. "I have an axe that harnesses the power of the Dark Mansion, capable of beheading prisoners of the Dark Mansion," said the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion, as immediately the surrounding atmosphere darkened, and a huge axe blade flickered in and out of visibility, like a divine punishment. "This is also one of my strongest moves. I fancy blade techniques. This is also one of my strongest frontal combat moves. Luo Feng gestured, and 80,000 galaxy blade lights condensed into an equally massive blade light. This 13-star palace, once the gathering place of 13 emperors, has a terrifying formation. The formation operated so there was no concern of the spillover impacting the other guests, while the two transcended beings of the primal chaos realm sparred. These are their strongest level techniques. Wonder who is stronger. The guests watched tensely, while some guests in the side halls didn't even have the privilege to watch, only knowing that the battle had commenced in the main hall. The divine punishment-like axe blade slowly descended, not fast in speed, but its might was evidently hard to counter. Slash, Luo Feng's mind moved, and the massive blade light formed by 80,000 galaxy blade lights, using a blade river slash, met it head-on. Coordinating so many galaxy blade lights, and executing a sophisticated move of the primal chaos realm level also placed a heavy burden on Luo Feng's spiritual will. Indeed, it was a near-limit long-range attack move. The axe and blade light collided. At the moment of collision, a huge phantom of the Dark Mansion prison loomed behind the axe, seeming as though the entire world's force augmented it, carrying powers like obliteration, penetration, divine punishment, and more, making the axe extremely terrifying. And Luo Feng's immense blade light was like 80,000 mid-layer primal chaos realm powerhouses simultaneously unleashing their full power in a godly power burst attack, and moreover, it was executed with the essence of Blade River Slash, making the force too terrifying. Currently Blade River Slash, integrating some mysteries of extermination of 72 blades, heaven-splitting lineage, and dark heaven lineage, although it was simplified, still carried a bifurcating essence. Whoosh! The huge axe blade was forcefully cleaved by the blade light, splitting it right in the middle. And Luo Feng's huge blade light, not a complete weapon secret treasure, but rather 80,000 galaxy blade lights converged, also exhibited numerous cracks under such a collision, but then quickly coalesced back together. The giant axe blade split apart, but also healed just as quickly, a result of the concentrated power in the Dark Mansion world, and it was not a weapon secret treasure either. Admirable, the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion praised. Impressive. Luo Feng also noticed the differences between them. The giant axe blade's power was far inferior to his own blade strike, yet it could easily find the weak spots in his blade light. It quickly locked onto the fact that the 80,000 blade lights were not unified, could naturally infiltrate, and caused the 80,000 blade lights to split apart. Even in a single exchange, his 80,000 galaxy blade lights had annihilated 3. Of course, he still possessed a massive reserve of the galaxy transformation method. Many of my methods stem from the Dark Mansion, said the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion. The Dark Mansion is also my strongest method. Brother Luo, would you dare to try entering it? Luo Feng smiled, I dare not. The Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion was taken aback. It was merely a casual competition, and moreover, it was within the 13-star hall and inside Chu capital. He naturally had to abide by the rules. But I can part some of my power to test the might of the Dark Mansion, Luo Feng said as he waved his hand, and instantly 5 kinds of transformation methods, each comprising 1 billion units, flew out and ultimately condensed into a silver silhouette. Good, the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion showed a delighted expression, and immediately looked toward the silver silhouette, intending to capture and imprison it with the Dark Mansion. Buzz. The terrifying power of the Dark Mansion world engulfed the silver silhouette, attempting to drag it into the Dark Mansion. But the silver silhouette stood there as if anchored in place, and could not be dragged or shaken at all. Boom 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 tilde 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 tilde. The dragging force of the Dark Mansion world erupted fully, causing the surrounding space to twist into a chaotic mess. Under the protection of the 13-star hall's formation, the guests all watched the scene in shock. It was rare to see the Dark Mansion fully unleashed. It cannot be moved. The Dark Mansion is a prison world cultivated within the body of the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion. If one is imprisoned inside, it would be difficult to escape. But the silver body formed by part of Great Saint Luo, his power cannot be imprisoned by the Dark Mansion. All eyes were watching. Luo Feng appeared calm, but his spiritual will was focused on the silver body, resisting the drag of the Dark Mansion world. Thus, the dragging force of the Dark Mansion world was mysterious, capable of affecting spiritual will, but Luo Feng, being in the second realm of Godly King and using the Lai Yuan technique, completely ignored this influence. And while the world's dragging force was enormous, the silver body, with a cumulative 50 billion units of transformation method, vibrated slightly and broke free from the restraint. Brother Luo, his body refinement technique is unimaginable, praised the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion. I cannot trap it inside the Dark Mansion, only the Dark Mansion world itself can now descend. Buzz tilde 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 tilde. A dark world descended from the void into reality, the Dark Mansion cultivated by the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion. It could be kept inside the body or released externally, though its power would decrease a notch when released. Now it was actively descending to envelop Luo Feng's silver body. Once the Dark Mansion world enveloped it, the restraints on the silver body significantly increased, with 8 chains swiftly winding around it. These 8 chains were of 8 colors, branded with various secret patterns, and even contained traces of primordial force. These were the 8 prison chains forged by the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion using primordial materials, melded into the dark prison. As Luo Feng felt the chains binding him, they sealed, suppressed, bound, strangled, infiltrated, and tore. All sorts of forces permeated his power avatar. The power of the silver body erupted, but the 8 chains were incredibly tough, undamaged in the slightest. HMPH. The silver body suddenly grew larger, forcibly stretching the 8 chains significantly, yet they still did not break. My transformation methods are formless, but after being bound by the 8 chains, not even a single unit could escape, Luo Feng remarked in surprise. Only brute force could withstand it. The silver body grew towering and tall, reaching the top of the main hall, and its full strength erupted, but it still could not break free from the 8 prison chains. Brother Yuan Xiu's Dark Mansion is indeed powerful. I cannot break free with this power avatar, Luo Feng lamented. I cannot even drag a single power avatar of Brother Luo He into the Dark Mansion. Even if I bind it with chains, it still wouldn't harm a power avatar, the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion said aloud, though he was secretly shocked. He had cultivated the secret technique, and even forged this dark prison using primordial materials. Who would have thought that great Saint Luo, his physical body had been cultivated to such an extent that just a single avatar of his was difficult to completely imprison within the Dark Mansion. I can trap his avatar, but not harm it. As for his true body, it remains to be seen whether it can be trapped or not, the Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion concluded, recognizing the formidable nature of Luo, his physical body. The Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion thought for a moment, then retracted the Dark Mansion world. Luo Feng also retracted the power avatar. Such a large power avatar, he could only use it at close range. After all, he did not have a clone technique, and from a distant place, he could only barely summon a strain of divine power. This power avatar contained 50 billion units of transformation method, yet it couldn't break the chains. This power avatar possessed 2 to 3/10 of the strength of the true body, Luo Feng thought, as he currently maintained a total of 200 billion units of transformation method. If the true body were trapped, it might not be able to break free either. Saw the novel, F.I.NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This exchange also made Luo Feng aware of the terrifying aspects of normal transcendence of the primal chaos realm. The dark prison, aided by primordial materials, was finally successfully refined. Even if a regular godly king was imprisoned, it would only take some time to escape, not harming the dark prison at all. This discussion with Brother Luo, he has enlightened me to the formidable nature of the body refinement lineage transcendence of the primal chaos realm. The Lord of Yuan Xiu Mansion raised a glass. Please. Please, Luo Feng also raised a glass. The other guests in the main hall were astounded by their matchup. The strength of these two was indeed far beyond the scope of the primal chaos realm. It was in the realm of a godly king, and even a slight exertion of their power could annihilate them. The banquet concluded in a friendly atmosphere. News of this exchange quickly spread throughout Chu capital. A woman in green stood atop a tall building, gazing at the vast and endless Chu capital. Is it worth it to come to Chu capital, just for cultivation? The woman in green silently pondered. In her small town on the fringe, there were only a few dozen eternal true gods, and with her strength, she was one of the most powerful in the town, naturally leading a comfortable life. In the small fringe town, I could never acquire powerful heritages, and breaking into the primal chaos realm seemed hopeless. But since coming to Chu capital, I quickly found a heritage that suited me. I even obtained quite a few resources, and now my strength could be described as at the limit of an eternal true god, thought the woman in green. With a heritage and resources, she had improved her strength, mastered several primal chaos realm moves, and now saw a glimmer of hope in advancing into the primal chaos realm. I've gained opportunities, but troubles have followed, the woman in green worried. If it weren't for the help of my good friend Marquis Chu, I would likely be living a life worse than death right now. But Marquis Chu, being a third-rate member of the imperial clan, holds no real power. The woman in green had been in Chu capital for quite some time, where she established Shallow Whisper Pavilion, drawing many guests through music and illusion technique, even attracting many noble patrons. Chu capital had many powers, and she had traded some sacrifices for cultivation heritage and some resources. I've been very careful in Chu capital, cautious at every step, even afraid to control the minds of any noble guests. Still, trouble came, she felt distressed. In Chu capital, where powers are deeply entangled, even a first-rate marquis of the imperial clan fights fiercely against others. She, a mere eternal true god, despite being careful, was still dragged into a dark vortex. Suddenly, the woman in green noticed two figures approaching. A man in black, accompanied by a naive-looking servant. Great Saint Luo He. The woman in green recognized him at a glance, her heart skipping a beat, feeling as if the sky itself had brightened considerably. She immediately went forward to greet them. The main building of the Shallow Whisper Pavilion. Just a few of your best songs, Luo Feng said as he sat down, while Morosa munched on food and drink beside him, accustomed to his master enjoying some music. But music didn't really interest the sector beast. Luo Feng was quite interested, although there were many performers at the previous discourse banquet. That was not a suitable occasion for deploying the 7 emotions of heart refining technique. Before coming, Luo Feng had gathered some information. Among the best at the banquet in terms of music and illusion techniques were 3 experts, and this woman in green, named Yu Yuyi, came from a small town on the fringe of flame-wind ancient country, and was currently embroiled in a big trouble involving a general from Chu capital named Shui Kai. Places like Chu capital, you can't just avoid trouble if you want to, Luo Feng thought. When he first arrived in Chu capital, he stayed in seclusion and didn't provoke anyone, yet Marquis Chu Yuan, Marquis Chu Ji, and their 3 guest elders still banded together against him. Only by achieving transcendence of primal chaos realm, could he truly rise above it all. Of the 3 music experts at the banquet, Luo Feng chose her, also intending to help her this one time. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh tilde tilde tilde. The woman in green stood there, surrounded by flowing water, using numerous streams as musical instruments, the sound emerging as if it were the natural sound of heaven and earth. This music, even aligning with the cosmic laws, further stirred Luo Feng's emotions. Luo Feng had already deployed the 7 emotions of heart refining technique, immersing himself even deeper in his feelings. Moved by the emotions, he found himself weeping unexpectedly. The woman in green was surprised. How could listening to music bring someone to tears? She dared not stop, focusing only on performing the music and illusion technique. Throughout the musical illusions, Luo Feng didn't say stop, so she didn't dare to. This great Saint Luo he seems easily moved by music. But at the discourse banquet, he didn't care at all. The woman in green, confident in her music and illusion technique, observed Luo Feng while performing. That's enough, Luo Feng suddenly spoke. The woman in green could only stop. Let's end it here for today. Luo Feng stood up and walked outside. Cultivators live too long and experience too much, emotions easily become numb. 7 emotions of heart refining technique, while it can intensely stir emotions, over time and repeated intense stimulation of the emotions, can also become numbing. So it should be used sparingly. 7 emotions of heart refining is just an adjustment. The Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique is fundamental. Luo Feng's 7 emotions of heart refining transitioned into the Great Destruction Heart Refining Technique. Accustomed to the painful tempering of his spiritual will, the continuous refinement also kept Luo Feng's spirit full of fighting spirit. How much is the fee? Morosa saw his master standing up, immediately waved to collect all the food and drink in front of him and his master, then turned to the woman in green. It's a great honor for Shallow Whisper Pavilion that great Saint Luo he could visit. There's no need for a fee, said the woman in green. Morosa frowned. The master doesn't like taking advantage. Speak, how much is the fee? 10 cosmic sands will suffice, the woman in green could only say. With a wave of his hand, Morosa sent out 10 cosmic sands, then swiftly followed Luo Feng as they left quickly. The woman in green immediately followed to see them off. She continued until Luo Feng and Morosa disappeared into thin air. Are you leaving just like that? The lady in green was somewhat agitated and also a bit apprehensive. Marquis Chu Yu's mansion. Brother Luo, he went to the Shallow Language Pavilion. Emperor Chu Yu naturally received the news, and with Luo Feng's current strength, Emperor Chu Yu was very concerned about every move of this guest elder. On one hand, he feared other first-class marquises might entice him, and on the other hand, he also worried about not having treated him well enough, which might deteriorate their relationship. Emperor Chu Yu knew well that even if they were once friends, it didn't mean they would always be friends. The relationship of friendship needs to be maintained. This brother Luo, when he was in Huyang City, liked to listen to music. Moreover, he often became so immersed in it that he would occasionally lose his composure, laughed Emperor Chu Yu, recalling that it was precisely because of Luo Feng's lapse that some eternal true gods in Huyang City considered Luo Feng to have a weak spiritual will and deemed him an average eternal true god. This also led to Luo Feng's first act in Huyang City, where he seized the true god's heart of the Vice President Lai Mo with one movement. At the Banquet of Philosophies, he listened to Yu Yui's music-driven illusion technique, and since he went there again in private, clearly he is quite fond of it. Emperor Chu Yu thought for a moment, then immediately instructed his trusted aide. Take my mansion's token and go to the Shallow Language Pavilion, advised Emperor Chu Yu. Yes, my lord, replied the trusted aide promptly. Luo Feng's mere visit to the Shallow Language Pavilion attracted the attention of many forces in Chu capital. Given their understanding of great Saint Luo, known for despising evil and having few usual hobbies, other than enjoying fine food, wine and music. Yu Yui's name was also collected by many forces. Great Saint Luo, he likes your music-driven illusion technique, which is a great opportunity for you. This is our Marquis Chu Yu Mansion's token. Show it if you run into trouble. You can also contact me directly, said the aide of the imperial clan's first-class marquis, whose status was quite high outside, as he, accompanied by several guards, delivered the token to Yu Yui at the Shallow Language Pavilion. Once the token was given, those aides left. Holding the token from Marquis Chu Yu's mansion, Yu Yui felt that all troubles were gone, completely relieved. In fact, even without this token, a transcendent being from the primal chaos realm coming to listen to her music-driven illusion technique was a message alone, powerful enough to intimidate even Shui Kai. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Luo Feng's days in Chu capital were quite peaceful. If there was a time during the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm when many forces dared to provoke him, or had conflicts of interest with him, now that Luo Feng had transcended the primal chaos realm, everyone, including those first-class marquises, was actively seeking to make good relations with him. Among the 7 first-class marquises under Emperor Chu's lineage, 6 are quite likable. Luo Feng, judged based on intelligence and personal interactions, only Marquis Chu Yuan is somewhat mad. During this time, only Marquis Chu Yuan consistently avoided Luo Feng and never met him face to face. Luo Feng also knew that Marquis Chu Yuan, who had the royal bloodline of Thunder Ancient Country, and was also leveraging the primordial bloodline in his cultivation, the root cause of his madness and fierceness was the path of his cultivation. Brother Luo, Luo Feng suddenly received a message. Hurry and prepare, the old ancestor's trusted aide has come. As Luo Feng, who was meditating in the quiet room, took in this news, he was startled. The old ancestor, naturally, was one of the 13 emperors of flame-wind ancient country, Emperor Chu. The coming of an emperor's trusted aide, what could it mean? According to the previous guesses by Emperor Chu Yu, the emperor might consider taking disciples. Search the ovalfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Sigh. Luo Feng quickly exited the quiet room and calmly awaited, sensing Luo Sa's approach, as he immediately rushed to his side upon detecting Luo Feng leaving his retreat. Master, did you leave your retreat so soon? Luo Sa inquired. A distinguished guest is coming soon, instructed Luo Feng, be cautious. A distinguished guest. Realizing the implication, Luo Sa immediately stood by to wait. Shortly after, 9 figures appeared out of thin air in the high sky, one of whom was Emperor Chu Yu, while the other 8 figures were all clad in the armor of the Emperor Chu Palace's trusted aides, albeit in different styles. The leader among the 9 figures was a silhouette of black water, wearing black armor with blood-colored secret patterns. The old ancestor has 3 main trusted generals. This one here is General Xian Jiao, introduced Emperor Chu Yu. General Xian Jiao, this is guest official Luo He. General Xian Jiao was burly, with black water flowing slowly within his armor, his eyes of condensed black water deadly still, casting a glance at Luo Feng and Luo Sa, enveloping the master and servant in a suffocating aura. When observed, the world seemed to fall into dead silence, wrapping around oneself. According to intelligence, Emperor Chu has 3 major trusted generals, reputedly not cultivators, but some very mysterious existences. Luo Feng, encountering General Xian Jiao for the first time, could feel a great disparity between them. Not a cultivator, yet so powerful. Luo Feng also knew that flame-wind ancient country harbored many secrets, and even the numerous opportunities granted by the mysterious Yuan were mostly monopolized by the 2 great ancient countries. Master, this General Xian Jiao is terrifying. I feel that with one move I would be gone, Luo Sa communicated telepathically to Luo Feng. Luo Feng immediately saluted. I've seen General Xian Jiao. These ordinary trusted aides were also eternal true gods, who could reach the strength of the primal chaos realm only with some powered augmentation. Luo He, General Xian Jiao looked at Luo Feng, his tone becoming slightly warmer. The emperor is interested in taking you as a disciple, would you be willing? If you are willing, then accompany me to the palace of Emperor Chu. If not, I will return to report. This video will end here.